In this edition of Locked On Capitals, the Washington Capitals are headed to the trade deadline. What is their biggest position of need? Let's talk about that next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, and I want to thank you for making this your first listen or view of the day. Yes, this podcast is also available in video form, so head on over to YouTube and check it out. And when you're on YouTube, make sure and hit that subscribe button. And if you like the videos, give it a thumbs up or leave some comments. It really helps grow the channel. My name is Dan Holman. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we are going to talk about what is the Capitals' biggest position of need as we head towards the trade deadline, which is March 3rd. We'll talk about that in the show. Then later we will talk about the All-Star break. Couldn't have come at a more better time. And then to close out the show, we will talk about Alex Ovechkin as he chases down Wayne Gretzky. All right, just to get it going here, there was an article out there in the Hockey Writers, and it kind of emanates from Elliotte Friedman talking about what is one of the Capitals' positions of need. And it wasn't one of the ones that I thought, when I think about what could the Capitals use to solidify, I was thinking a depth defenseman. I was thinking a forward. It was Elliotte Friedman's idea that maybe the Capitals will be in the market for a netminder. You thought that when they went out in the offseason that they signed Darcy Kuemper and they signed Charlie Lindgren, that would kind of put to rest any of that kind of goalie talk. But it was his belief that maybe the Caps might be in the market for a netminder. The netminder they are talking about is Karel Vejmelka of the Arizona Coyotes. And, he is one of the players that I think is a bit of a victim of circumstance. I think he's a great goaltender. He's playing on a pretty horrible Arizona Coyotes team. Could he benefit playing on a better team? So he was originally drafted by the Predators, but ultimately chose to go to the Coyotes. And why did he ultimately decide to go to the Coyotes? Because they offered him pretty much a starting role where if he would have taken the job with the Predators, it would have pretty much been a backup role. I think it would have been around the Pecorine era. So he would have probably been sitting back seat in that situation. But just taking a look at it, why did Elliotte Friedman think that would be a good fit? Vjmelka is a 26-year-old goaltender from Czechia who was drafted by the Predators, like I talked about there. One of the things that Elliotte Friedman tossed around the idea of was entertaining offers for Vjmelka. If the Caps are looking to improve even a little bit, he would be an ideal candidate to run alongside Kuemper for the remainder of the season. For me, it's not for me. I don't think that is a good fit. I think that, you picked your goalies in the offseason. You picked Kuemper, you picked Lindgren, and that is who you're going to roll with. And ultimately, if things go downhill, they have the depth down in Hershey that they need. So if you take a look even at the month of December, Darcy Kuemper got injured, Charlie Lindgren stepped in, and then they had Hunter Shepard step up. But if you just take a look at the depth chart for the Capitals, so down in Hershey, it is Hunter Shepard, it is Zach Fucale, they have Garen Bjorklund and Clay Stevenson. So there is a plethora of different options out there. Why don't they do that? And I guess that for me, this kind of harkens back to when Holtby first kind of Braden Holtby came to prominence on this team, and then they went out and signed Thomas Vokoun. And I remember thinking to myself, why did they sign Thomas Vokoun? At the time, I think it was Michael Neuwirth was also in the mix there. But sometimes they try to bolster these positions that they believe could be a little bit better. So the Caps goaltending is good. Could it be a little bit better? ultimately, for me, I think that if they're going to trade Lars Eller, they would be best served to try to get a forward or a defenseman. I think they can go ahead and leave the net minding position alone. And what was spoke of in this article is they were proposing trading Lars Eller plus a draft pick. Hey, I've been to this movie. I've seen that. I do not want the Capitals to move on from forwards or futures as far as draft picks are concerned, or someone that's down in Hershey. I just don't think that makes sense, especially for a goalie, which the Capitals have that in spades. I really don't think they need to address the net minding position. So if the Capitals do want to go out and trade Lars Eller or Anthony Mantha or something like that, I can see that, but do it for a position that the Capitals actually need to solidify. We know that John Carlson is going to be missing sometime. So if they want to go out and pick up a defenseman, or if they want to pick up a depth forward, see Sonny Milano or Nicholas Abe-Kubel, something of that nature, then I can get behind that. But for them to go out and trade Lars Eller and a draft pick for a position that is pretty much sewn down, it just does not make a lot of sense to me. Caps Nation, does that make a lot of sense to you? Why would they trade Lars Eller for Vjmelka? Don't get me wrong. I think Vjmelka probably is one heck of a goalie. He is just a victim of circumstance playing on a pretty poor NHL team. I think that obviously he could be better served playing on a better team, but for the Caps, I'm going to go ahead and say they should probably pass on that. It is an interesting time. This is kind of the crazy season between the All-Star break and the trade deadline where everything is kind of thrown to the wall and see what sticks. That's not going to stick. And, I understand that it's, Elliotte Friedman's job to pontificate and kind of spin these things. That's what he ultimately does for a living. And he does have the inside track, but ultimately, I think that he's a little bit off on this one. All right. So after the break here, we are going to talk about the All-Star break and how this couldn't have come at a more better time for the Capitals. We'll talk about that next. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download the FanDuel app now so you can get and bet on Super Bowl 57 with no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back and bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from money line to point spreads to see who will score a touchdown. And guys, even if you're not into betting, you could bet on the game, put some money on it. It makes watching the games that much more exciting. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid for your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. In this next segment, we're going to talk about the All-Star break and how this couldn't have come at a more better time. And what do I mean when I say that? Well, and there's been past seasons when I said, the Caps have had this great momentum going forward. All of a sudden, it's going to stop because of the All-Star break. Not this season. The Caps have struggled, and I think, it would be a great time to rest and reset mentally in all facets. I think this Caps team, considering the myriad of injuries they've faced this season, a break is just what the doctor ordered. You take a look at some of the players that are kind of on the fringe and ready to return. See Tom Wilson, see Nick Dowd, John Carlson, who is a bit of a ways out, but even giving him some extra time, I think that will ultimately help. I mean, let's face it, the Caps killed it in the month of December, but have struggled in the month of January. Is a break of this nature going to help them? Of course it is. Nick Dowd talked about it as much. He said that this team is being, kind of worked hard and just mentally and physically, they've kind of been put through their paces. So this is just a perfect time for the Capitals to catch a little bit of a break here. If you take a look at it, they finished 6-7-1 after a stellar December, writes Washington Hockey Now. So ultimately, not the record that they were looking for. This hasn't been really a month that we're really excited about or planned, Jensen noted, but to finish going into the break with a win, it's huge. And then we get to reset a little bit. Everyone gets to rest up, some injuries, get 100% and come back, and hopefully we can go on some runs here. And hopefully that is the case, because we do know that October, November were a bit of a struggle. And then December came and everything changed and the Caps were playing so much better. That is what they're hoping for in the month of February and March, where the rubber meets the road. We're past the point of the season where we're like, well, we're struggling now, but we got all this runway ahead of us. That runway is getting shorter and shorter all the time. The Caps need to make hay while the sun shines, and that time to do it is right now. So hopefully this break can help a lot of these players that are on the verge of coming back. Like I talked about Tom Wilson and Nick Dowd, they can come back and help contribute to this team. We know what Tom Wilson brings to this team, that physicality, that enforcement factor. The Caps always play better when Tom Wilson's out there. His leadership qualities. Nick Dowd, part of that fourth line, that grinder line, just kills it with Garnet Hathaway. We really need him to come back as well. So this is a perfect opportunity. My big thing for Alex Ovechkin is that I hope that ultimately he gets some rest as well. I know that he is going to be participating in the festivities this year, but I hope that he doesn't party too much, shall we say, and he can get some break as well, because that's what, even I know he's the Russian machine that never breaks and all that, but ultimately he could use a rest out there as well. Personally, I was pretty fortunate just because another 10, 11 days of missing. If we were in the season, that's potentially another 5 games, Dowd said in an interview with 106.7 The Fan on Wednesday. Right now, I'm at a total of 6 games missed since I got hurt 2 weeks ago. I think these extra 10, 11 days of healing and getting back in will really help me. So that's what I talked about is, sometimes these breaks are just what the doctor ordered. You got to think to a certain extent, there are probably teams around the NHL that are saying, no, we don't want to take a break. Things have been going so well for us. See the Boston Bruins, for example, they would probably love nothing more than to just keep steamrolling ahead, because, sometimes when teams come back from breaks of this nature, it takes them a while to find their bearings, to find their hockey legs, if you will. So, some teams get better. And wouldn't that be something if all of a sudden the Bruins went on a losing streak? I know that they have struggled a little bit as of late, but they still have the best record in the NHL. We're hoping that it's going to help the Capitals in the big picture of things, because we know, like I talked about, that they have struggled. Is this going to be the thing that is going to help them push them forward? How much better is this Capitals team with Tom Wilson in the lineup? How much better are they with Nick Dowd? Eventually, John Carlson at some point. Like I talked about in the first segment there, the Caps have some big decisions to make as far as what they want to solidify before the trade deadline. Ultimately, they can use this time to determine, is Tom Wilson and Nick Dowd, are they going to be good to go? And is John Carlson going to be good to go? Because if, in fact, they are not ready to return, then potentially the Caps are going to have to make some changes around the trade deadline and help bolster this team that is trying to make the most of the rock the red Alex Ovechkin era. That is why you're starting to see all these rumors swirling around there. So ultimately, a best case scenario for the Capitals going forward right now is just to rest and recovery. Hopefully they're not out there partying too much. They actually take this time to just rest and, mentally and physically get in the place that they need to be. All right, so after the break here, we are going to talk about Alex Ovechkin as he's taken on Wayne Gretzky's record, and he's doing it a lot faster than anyone thought possible. We'll talk about Ovi next. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, you want to eat healthy, but you don't want to compromise on taste, then man, I've got the thing for you. You gotta try a Built Bar. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like candy while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they're healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. We've talked about for years that you can get these on built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right, head to your nearest Walmart or today, walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate chip, or coconut puff. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box of our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. In this next segment here, we're going to talk about Alex Ovechkin as he is breaking goals faster than anyone thought possible. If you really stop and think about what Ovi's doing in this modern era, it's quite impressive. You take a look at Gretzky and you take a look at Gordie Howe. They did that in a period where the goalies were shorter, their pads were smaller, and they had kind of just that flailing style. Modern goalies are in the butterfly style. They're better athletes and they're taller. So for Alex Ovechkin to keep knocking out these records in modern times is most impressive. Some people say right now that Ovi is the greatest goal scorer of all time, just based on the fact that he is doing it in modern times. If you've taken a look at it, there has been the COVID years, there has been lockouts. He is still finding a way to get production against some of the best netminders in the league. And he's doing that not only because he is a great goal scorer, but like Adam Oates talked about in this article here in The Athletic, he's doing it because he has the brain to do it. Some people just think, pass me the puck and I'm going to slam it home. It's just as simple as that, right? Well, what Adam Oates is talking about, yes, former Capitals head coach Adam Oates, not one of the best head coaches, I got to say, in Capitals history, but he is a great coach as far as how to refine a player's shot and how to score goals, that kind of thing. So Adam Oates talked about it that that he got Ovechkin back to his 50 goal form. For a while there, he struggled a little bit and he wasn't getting quite that production. He came in and helped Ovi find his game a little bit there. So that's ultimately what it's all about. Gretzky scored 23 goals in his age 37 season. Howe tallied 29, Brett Hull 30, with roughly the same number of miles on the odometer. Ovi has put the great one, Mr. Hockey, the Golden Brett, in his rearview mirror with 2.5 months remaining in the regular season. And what is this all about ultimately? This is about an Ovechkin that is more mature. Let's face it, when he first came into the league, he was all about, the glitz and glamour and rap videos and all that kind of stuff. He was caught up in the trappings of being a young man that was at the top of his game in the NHL. Now he's 37 years old with a couple kids and a wife. Things have changed for him a little bit. He is not the guy that's going to drop the gloves and want to fight the first guy that comes out on the ice. He is a guy that kind of leaves that for other guys on the team. He concentrates on what he does best, and that's scoring goals. He is projected to pass Gretzky in the 24-25 season, and I do believe that he is on par for doing that. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be able to do that, except for the injury thing out there. We know that there's a website out there called Russian Machine Never Breaks, named after Alex Ovechkin, who is the Russian machine that never breaks. Alex Ovechkin did miss some time this year due to injury, and it seems that while he still is a pretty sturdy, solid guy, Father Time is coming for all of us. And he is 37 years old. And these injuries that maybe he would normally have bounced back from in his younger day are taking a little bit longer. So that is one of the biggest things that could derail or stymie his progress, is the injury thing, the injury bug, that many of the Capitals players have faced. I do believe that intrinsically he has it within him to pass Wayne Gretzky. I really think it's just ultimately a matter of time. Like I spoke of, it's the 24-25 season is his projection to pass Gretzky. But I think that as long as he can stay healthy, he is on pace. He is on par for passing him sooner than that, as long as he can stay healthy. And that was kind of Adam Oates' assessment in that article as well, is that all he had to do was just really help him refine his game, because ultimately Ovi has, tried to tinker with different things. He's tried to do it with different hockey sticks and different things to help him try to find the best production possible. And I think that he has been able to do that. And I think that he is going to continue to be able to do that. He's just got to concentrate on playing hockey. He's got to stay healthy. And he hopes that this team around him can continue to contribute, because Ovi can be the greatest player in the world, but if he's on a team that cannot score or help him score, then that is definitely going to stunt his growth. I ultimately think that he is going to be able to do that. My projection in the beginning of the season was 52 goals. I know that's not much of a leap, but I remember Tarek Elbashir's was 47. So it's going to be interesting to see who's closest without going over. I ultimately think that Ovi is going to be able to do it again. He's just got to stay healthy and concentrate on his game and avoid getting injured at all costs. Avoid getting drawn into stupid fights or something of that nature. And I think that he'll be just fine. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, where we are in the All-Star break. And I got some great guests lined up for you during the All-Star break here. I got Matt Wyrick, among some other guests that are coming on. Plus, I have some guests from some fans from you that are out there that are Caps fans and maybe perhaps fans of the show that will be on to talk to me. And we'll talk about, what do you think the Caps should do at the trade deadline? How many goals do you think Ovechkin will get this year? Those kind of things. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'll send you a Zoom link and we'll talk. All you got to do is shoot me an email, minutecastmedia@gmail.com. That's minutecastmedia@gmail.com. So we can talk a little Caps. Me and you Caps fans. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So once again, thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. My name is Dan Homey, and I'll talk to you again next time.